We now return to the Great Attorney Chronicles.
Vinzix, how are we proceeding?
This trial is rapidly descending into a farce. Like a corked wine, the first few sips are bitter enough. But what follows is so repugnant it's good for nothing save the gutter. If I may, Lord Van Zeeks, the defense has just put forward a credible alternative explanation for what happened. Credible? Is that your considered opinion, Mr. Foreman? The defense's argument is a joke to which I barely know how to respond, but let me start by insisting that you must all familiarize yourself better with the relative positions of those places being discussed. What do you mean by that? What's his angle this time? It should already be more than apparent that between the crime scene and the Garadeb household runs a rather wide street, Briar Road. Which means that the distance from the Garadeb's house to the scene is some, 15 yards. 15 yards? You're bullshitting me. A street in Victorian London being 150 feet wide? Bullshit. Well, let me see. 15 yards. That's around 14 meters. 14 meters? That's a little farther than I had imagined. And, as you ladies and gentlemen of the jury rightly noted as having portentous significance, the fourth book was found in the victim's clutches. In other words, a smoldering book wantonly hurled by the lady of the house traveled some 15 yards to land on the opposite side of the road, neatly between the collapsed victim's fingers and thumb. Is that your final conclusion, my learned and deluded friend? And did the jackknife following a near identical trajectory to plunge into the middle of the victim's back? Did the jackknife follow that? Yeah, well, this fantasy is somewhat stretching the notion of having a bad day for the victim, I think. Even those pathetic serialized detective stories have more believable plots. There's nothing I can say to that. That prosecutor loves the sound of his own voice. Mrs. Sato. Serialized detective stories are pathetic, are they? How dare he? Oh boy. Maybe let's pick our battles here. My lord, might I be allowed to speak?
Judicial assistant, you may speak for the defense, yes. Go ahead.
The prosecution may consider the idea a fantasy, but what the defense has postulated was believable enough to persuade the jury to change its leaning. And as such, the court has a duty to explore this alternative explanation as thoroughly as possible. To that end, Juror number 4, Mrs. Joan Garadeb, must be called to testify and submit to cross-examination.
Saints alive! A cross-examination of a juror? Order! Order! Well, this is highly irregular. It is unprecedented for a member of the jury to be summoned to the witness stand.
Objection!
Ah, my eye. And unnecessary.
Lord Van Zeeks?
There are already witnesses in the stand whose testimony the defense may further cross-examine. If my learned friend's farcical theory has any truth in it, then both a burning book and a jackknife must have flown through the sky before this couple's eyes. And we must assume that they would be able to testify accordingly.
What say you, witnesses?
Yes, sir. Constable Rolly Beat reporting for duty, sir. Well, good morning, officer. Sorry for dozing until now, sir. I haven't slept for a month on account of a villain who's appeared on my beat, sir. Oh, you're so heroic, these London bobbies. Patricia, my darling, I've been neglecting you, but no more. Oh, Rolly, my hero, you make me swoon.
Very well. I hereby reject the defense's request
Oh?
and order the witnesses in the stand to testify again. State forthwith before the court any details pertaining to the defense's alternative explanation of events.
Yes, sir. He looks like he's still sleepy. This case has nothing to do with Mr. and Mrs. Garadeb. Believe me, a London Bobby is good for his word. You see, sir, the windows on the top floor of the Garadeb house are top-hinged casements. Obviously, if anything had been thrown out the window, we would have seen it. I did leave the scene to go and fetch help, but my trusty Rolly was there to make sure nothing was disturbed. Face down in the snow. I didn't take my eyes off the crime scene for one moment, sir. Nothing strange to report on that front, sir. I mean...
Well, this is quite startling. Top-hinged casement windows.
That detail was not in the police report, Constable. Yes, sorry about that. I must have been a little drowsy. You cannot excuse your sins with drowsiness every time, Constable. No, sir. Sorry, but... What exactly is a top-hinged casement window? And you cannot excuse your ignorance with such trite remarks, my learned friend. Of course, sorry. I found it, Mr. Naruhodo. What the hell is in that book? Cast your mind back to the windows in Mr. and Mrs. Garadeb's house. Or room, rather, whatever. Alright. Try. So the window opens in order to allow air to circulate inside the house. But, as it's a top-hinged casement window, it swings open along the upper edge, you see. I'm glad you've rectified your ignorance. The casement window's most prominent feature is its stay, a metal bar which prevents the window from being opened beyond a certain amount. It prevents it from opening? This is all news to me. What a wonderful fire hazard, no way to escape a burning building. Absolutely correct, sir. In other words, if a book or knife were to have been thrown through the open window, it would have clattered against the pane and fallen straight down to the pavement below. Oh. You see the problem, then? Good. Your education in windows is complete. There was never any possibility of either the book or the knife traveling 15 yards over the road. That is, unless the window pane has been shattered, something we've discounted already. That can't be... Did you see that, Rolly? The young Japanese man just collapsed in agony. Oh yes, my darling, I saw it. I saw how he crumpled before me. Oh, Rolly, you're so strong. How is this happening? I haven't even started the cross-examination yet, and already my argument's been destroyed. There's still a bicycle and a goddamn clown.
Counsel, if you could drag yourself upright again, the court awaits your cross-examination.
My lord? Oh, good. Another desperate situation. My thoughts exactly. This case has nothing to do with Garadeb. Believe me, a Bobby's good for his word.
Hold it!
Just press on everything. How can you say that for certain? A very good question, sir. And the answer is this. It has the noble founding principles of the Force written on it as a reminder to all us policemen of our sworn duty. He showed us that before, didn't he? Did he? Can't say I remember. Patrol the streets of London town and uphold the peace of the common man. It's what the job's all about. And that is why I can stand here today beside my long-suffering wife and tell you a Bobby's good for his word. While rubbing my tired eyes admittedly, sir. Oh, Rolly, you're so manly. Of course I am, my darling Patricia. Oh, Pat. Oh, Rolly. Oh, brother. No, none of this is what I meant. I meant, how can you say for certain that this case has nothing to do with Mr. and Mrs. Garadeb? Ah, I see, sir. You should have said so earlier, sir. Yes, well. So, could you answer the question? That was a waste of time, then. Absolutely, sir. Oh, I will answer it to the fullest of my abilities, sir. There is a surprising reason why Mr. and Mrs. Garadeb's domestic dispute can't be related to this case. But before I get into that, sir, just one thing. Yes? I'd very much like you and all your countrymen to understand the great British institution of Scotland Yard. So I hope you'll take back some tales of us London bobbies and how we upheld our guiding principles. I wasn't planning on going back just yet. Only just arrived here. So to that end, sir, I'd be happy to lend you my warrant card for your perusal. But I must warn you, you won't be able to get through it without shedding a few tears. Thank you. I'll try. The warrant card has been entered into the court record. Okay, I was going to look at that here, but I can't do that just yet. You see, sir, the windows on top with casements.
Hold it!
Casement windows. By which you mean they don't open fully, is that correct? Is that why the windows were bricked up? The books were thrown out the book room? And then it's like, oh god, we gotta break this up real fast? I don't know, I doubt that, but... By which you mean they don't open fully, is that correct? Yes, sir. They're just there to allow a bit of air through the house, you see. So they're restricted as to how much they open. Therefore, anything thrown out of the window from inside the room simply strike the pane and fall to the street directly below. For clarity, allow me to mark the map. Well, thank you. Here is the location where objects would have fallen.
Oh, yes, directly opposite the scene of the crime on the other side of the rather wide road.
Would it have been so hard for somebody to mention this top-hinged casement thing before? Well, I have another question for you, Constable. And what would that be, sir? How do you even know? Why would you have any idea what sort of windows Mr. and Mrs. Garadeb's house is furnished with? Ah, well, sir, that's very simple. You see, I helped with the investigation yesterday.
Excuse me!
Do you have something to add, Mrs. Beat? Sorry? You look, well, delighted. Is there some particular reason for that? What's his face? Oh, I was just remembering, that's all. We really were so lucky. Lucky? What do you mean? Well, of course I feel terrible for the poor woman who was attacked. Don't misunderstand me, please. But we were just so lucky it didn't happen on Rolly's beat. It was so close, you see. Oh, I hadn't realized. Oh yes, that street, Briar Road. That's the boundary between Rolly's beat and the next one. Isn't that right, my love? Constable Beat. Oh, yes, that's right. That's the reason I was helping out with the interviewing the occupants of the Garadeb household yesterday. Their house is on my beat, you see, sir. That really was cutting it close then. Constable, I wonder if you could clarify something. If the Garadeb household is on your beat, does that mean that the pavement next to it is as well? Outside Mr. Garadeb's house? Yes, ma'am. Pavement on that side of the road is part of my beat. I see. I was unaware of that. Just think, if the woman had been attacked just on the other side of Briar Road, we never would have been able to go for that meal to celebrate our wedding anniversary. Their house is on my beat. If the Garadeb household is on your beat, then the pavement is next to it as well. The pavement on that side of the road is part of my beat. If the woman had been attacked on the other side of Briar Road, so she was attacked next to the house. They moved her. But that's the life of a Bobby, after all.
Extraordinary people, our Bobbies is tirelessly working for the benefit of all Londoners.
Do you know what I think? I think it was the good Lord's way of rewarding my Rolly for all his hard work. Don't you think so, my darling? That must be it, Pat, my love. It must be. I think perhaps we should make sure we have that information officially on record. Leave it to me, Mr. Naruhodo. I will take care of it immediately. The case file's information has been updated in the court record. The pavement where the victim was found lies just outside Constable Beat's beat, the border of which run... Oh, so they were coming on the left side, and okay, that's what he's saying. So they came from the left side. And now it's my turn, I think. Obviously, if anything had been thrown out the window, we would have seen it.
Hold it!
But according to my notes here, the sun had gone down already, and it was dark. Oh, but Rolly and I were strolling along, gazing at the night sky and looking for our lucky star. Sorry? The star that will guide us to eternal happiness. Can't it guide you to answer the question? If a flaming book had cut across the sky in front of us, it would have lit up like a shooting star. And if I had seen a shooting star, I would have made a wish upon it. Let Rolly be an inspector, I would have said, 3 times at least. Yeah, of course, what with the smog and everything, we couldn't actually see any stars. In short, are you trying to say that neither a book nor a knife crossed the sky before you? Yes, sir, that is correct, sir. As sure as the night sky and London is starless, sir. Certainly seems like they're telling the truth. And then we saw that poor woman fall to the ground, so we ran straight over to help her. I did leave the scene to go and fetch help, but my trusty Rolly was there to make sure nothing was disturbed. I didn't take my eye off the crime scene for one moment, sir. Nothing strange to report on that front, sir. So sorry, Mr. Naruhodo. I had no right to speak out. What do you mean? I requested the cross-examination of Mrs. Garadeb without consulting you, even if the judge did deny me. Oh, I see. Well, I agree with you. We do need testimony from Mrs. Garadeb, if we're ever going to get out to the truth of this matter. You really think so? Well, think about it. No matter how far it is across the road or how that window opens, Mr. Garadeb's book found its way to the scene of the crime somehow, didn't it? You're right. And then there was Mrs. Garadeb's reaction to me showing her the knife. The woman's hiding something, I'm sure of it. You're right again. We need to use this cross-examination to uncover more clues. We'll get to the bottom of this one way or another, I swear. Yes. Okay, I still want to see on a goddamn map where they were specifically. Yes, you said that you went to a nearby police box to fetch another officer, is that right? That's right, yes. If it had been on Rolly's beat, I would have known exactly what... Right, okay, we did this one. Don't feel bad, my love. You can't be expected to know the location of every police box on every beat. So Raleigh told me the way, only I sort of got a little lost on the way. Patricia, my darling, that's why I love you. Your terrible sense of direction is bewitching to me. Oh, Pat, oh, Raleigh.
Oh, please.
And so I suppose I was gone for about 15 minutes. But like I said, my Raleigh was at the scene the whole time, making sure nothing was disturbed. I was off duty at the time, of course, but a true Bobby is never really off duty, sir. I think I'd like to press more on that. I didn't take my eyes off the crime scene for one moment, sir. Nothing strange to report on that front.
Hold it!
Nothing to report. That's correct, sir. I had my eyes wide open the entire time, never looked away for a second. No one else approached the scene, and nothing was removed from it. I swear to that on the yard's honor, sir. Really? That seems a little strange. I beg your pardon, sir? Strange, sir? Seems altogether regular to me. This burnt copy of The Lion's Pride was originally in the Garadeb household, so the question remains, how did it find its way into the hand of the victim? Can you shed any light on that, seeing as you were at the scene of the crime the entire time? Ah, could it be a different copy, sir? One that just happened to be burnt as well? Even if that were possible, why would the victim have been gripping a book like that in her hand? As we can see from this photographic print, she had a bag over her shoulder. Well, sir, that book was in that lady's hand from the moment we arrived at the scene. So she clearly picked it up. Is that so? There's something about this statement that's not sitting right with me. The two mysteries of how that knife ended up in her back and how that book ended up in her hand. There must be some common thread between them. Thanks for that. Can I ask you something, please, Mr. Lawyer, sir? Oh, yes, of course. What is it? You're doubting us, aren't you? I can tell. But I wasn't really, I mean, what's she doing? Please, just because I'm a woman, it doesn't make my testimony any less valuable. You might just see me as the wife of a policeman, but I'm a woman of my word, I am. I really don't remember ever suggesting that I doubted you. No excuses, I don't want to hear it. My voice will be heard. My lord, you'll let me speak, won't you?
Yes, Mrs. Beat, I will allow you to supplement your testimony if you so desire. Sometimes the path of least resistance is the sage one. That was a very loud mutter.
Oh, I heard that. That Japanese man thinks a policeman's wife's word counts for nothing, does he? Well, watch out, sir. I might let you get away with something like that, but my Raleigh won't.
Duly noted, Mrs. Beat. Please, I humbly ask you to continue. What could she possibly be about to say, I wonder? Obviously, whatever unlocks the next dialogue that we can aha.
I know what I saw. My eyes never let me down. My sense of direction's a little off sometimes, though. Okay, as we press this...
Mrs. Beat, nobody is questioning what you've told us.
I saw it. I did that evening. I saw it clearly. That little Eastern man with the whiskers and the funny curved back slinking away from the scene. And I know what I didn't see as well. I didn't see any flaming books or knives flying through the sky.
All very clear. You also mentioned something about having a poor sense of direction?
Oh, yes, well, that's a little embarrassing, really. I'm always ending up at the wrong place when I've made arrangements to meet Raleigh. He gets ever so cross.
Excuse me.
Constable Beat, is there a problem?
Yeah, no, sir. No problem, sir.
Did your wife's remark just now bring something to mind, perhaps?
Oh, well, in a way, sir. Yes, sir. I was just remembering that the same thing happened that evening is all.
You mean Mrs. Beat lost her way?
on the night of the incident? Well, you see, I sent her off to find a police box in the next beat over from mine. But she was gone a fair bit longer than what I was expecting. I thought she'd be back inside 10 minutes, but my darling was gone for a good 15. Oh, Rolly, you're such a tease. The reason I was so long was because of the bouquet, silly. The bouquet? Sorry, what bouquet are you talking about? Oh, it was a present for our wedding anniversary. Rolly's so romantic. He saved up for it with farthings and halfpennies he found in the gutter while doing his rounds. Yes, how romantic. I'd forgotten all about it until just now. Had you, my darling? Oh, yes. But that was just between us. No talking about it to anyone else, darling. You have to promise. Really? Oh. What was that all about? Constable Beat looked very obviously troubled during that exchange. I'm afraid I can't offer any useful insight, Mr. Naruhodo. But I'm quite sure of one thing. We have to ask Mrs. Beat about the bouquet. Mrs. Beat, that bouquet you just mentioned. I'd like you to add details about it to your testimony, please. Oh, really? Yes, I'd love to. What happened was, I dropped my bouquet and ended up losing my way for a while.
Hold it!
For a while. You mean you dropped the bouquet at the scene of the crime? Yes, that's right. Oh, I was so upset. When we ran over and saw it was a woman with a knife in her back, I was so shocked I dropped the bouquet Rolly gave me. It was in a dark spot where the streetlights weren't casting any light, so I didn't notice at first. Really? And then you went to the police box to report it to the policeman whose beat it was on. Yes, and I came back to the scene together with the other constable, you see. That's when I spotted my bouquet again. The funny thing was, when I went to pick it up, it was nowhere near the victim's body at all. In case you need reminding, Mrs. Beat, the victim is not deceased. I was all flustered for a moment before I heard a voice calling me from the other side of the road. Your husband, presumably. That's right. Silly me, I'd gone over to the wrong side of the street. You're bringing this up again. I want to know what, on the goddamn map, what side of the street they were on. Although I'm going to blame the bouquet this time, I can't think how it got there. I really can't. So the bouquet somehow moved from one side of Briar Road to the opposite.
Curious indeed.
Isn't it? But the worst of it is I forgot to pick the bouquet up again when we left the scene. That beautiful rose Rolly bought me, that change from the gutter he spent so long collecting. By bouquet, do you perhaps mean this solitary rose? Oh, yes, that's it. That's the bouquet Rolly bought me for our anniversary, with all bits of change he found in the gutter. Maybe just call it a rose.
Tell us, Lord Van Zeeks, where did you come by the flower?
According to the report by the police officer in charge of the crime scene investigation, it was found on the edge of the pavement in front of the Garadeb household. In front of the Garadeb's house. Okay. So the body was over there. Although it wasn't noticed until the morning, as it lay there, the street lamps cast no light. As it lay where? It was believed to be of no relevance to the case, since it was found on the opposite side of the thoroughfare. Oh, thank you, sir. Thank you. Could I have it back now, please?
No, I think for good measure this rose should be added to the court record as evidence.
Oh? The anniversary bouquet has been entered into the court record. Shall I get a chance to look at this before we continue on? But it's a symbol of our love. I'm afraid I need to look at this because there's also something else that was added that I didn't get a chance to look at. Item 1. A policeman will strive to preserve the peace within his allotted beat. 2. A patrolling officer is expected to walk 20 miles around his beat every day for the furtherance of community relations. Any crimes fall under the jurisdiction of the beat in which they are covered or discovered. When a crime is discovered on his beat, a policeman must assist with initial investigations and help detectives. So they said the body was on the outside of the jurisdiction, but he had to help with the investigation, even though it was supposed to be outside of his beat, right? That's what she said. Thank goodness it was outside his beat, or we never would have made it to dinner. So my understanding initially was correct then, that the body has been moved. Look at that rose. It's very stylish paper the flower's wrapped in, isn't it? It's a newspaper. It's just an old newspaper, Mr. Naruhodo. Oh, I suppose it's because I'm not used to seeing English print. It looks so exotic to me. I see. Is something wrong? Oh, no, I was just thinking that if you wrapped a stone-baked sweet potato in English newspaper, it might look like some sort of fancy cake. Ah, Susato-san, you do love your cakes. An English rose. It's such a beautiful flower. Ah, this is a rose, is it? I've never seen one before. Do you not take an interest in flowers, Mr. Naruhodo? I wouldn't say that exactly, but I do know 3 types at least. Gosh, 3? Yes, plum blossom, peach blossom, and cherry blossom. Perhaps you should consider branching out to learning some that aren't fruit tree based, for example. Okay, yes. I really don't think there's anything else to look at here, but that very strange, I feel. Like, why would it allow me to look at this and not... I mean, there's nothing weird. Although there's this, unless it's the newspaper. Fuck. Alright. I don't know. I don't know what else I'm supposed to be looking at here. Nothing on the inside of the paper, doesn't look like. Yeah, I honestly don't know. I don't know what we could possibly do to present this. This thing, however, is very interesting. But, I want it back after the trial. Do you hear me? I want it back.
Good grief, rest assured that I shall do my very best not to forget Mrs. Beat.
And take my eyes off the crime scene for one moment. Nothing strange to report on that front. We already pressed on this one, right?
Hold it!
Nothing to report. Nothing was removed from it. Copy now. Okay. Something about this statement. It's not sitting right with me. The book was in the lady's hand the moment we arrived at the scene. Now the knife ended up in her hand, now the book ended up in her hand. Must be commonly linked. Yeah, okay. The whole idea of an invisible attacker has just been troubling me all along. But I believe I'm starting to get a picture of what really happened here now. The fourth book, that had no business being at the scene of the crime, made me sure that Mrs. Garadeb was hiding something from us, but it's becoming increasingly clear that someone else has been hiding something from us as well. I think I may already be armed with everything I need to strike a decisive blow here. Go on? This time, it's going to expose the whole truth about this mysterious affair. I'm glad you know, because I'm clueless on this one. Unless it's the last statement.
Hold it!
Alright, can we move on with this, please? Nothing strange to report on that front. So the only thing I can do is present the rose that happened to be on the other side of the street. How did that happen, I guess? She dropped it, she ran away, she came back, it was on the other side of the street.
Objection!
Well, we got that one right. You claim, Constable Beat, that there was nothing to report in the 15 or so minutes you were guarding the scene. But that cannot be. What do you mean to say? In your testimony just now, Mrs. Beat, you explained to the court that when you arrived back at the scene of the crime with the policeman assigned to that beat, the bouquet you had dropped at the victim's side was no longer anywhere nearby.
Objection!
Yes, on the opposite side of Briar Road to where the victim was attacked. But considering the size of that meager bouquet, if a single sorry blossom had been so described, or can be so described, no doubt it was blown on the wind across the street, back into the gutter where it belongs. Meager? But if that were the case, why did Constable Beat not testify to the fact? No one else approached the scene, and nothing was removed from it. Constable Beat swore on that on Scotland Yard's honor. But the bouquet belonged to me. It has nothing to do with this case. That's why Rowley didn't mention it, I'm sure. No, because sadly, it's not only your bouquet we're talking about here. More than one thing in this case is mysteriously the wrong way around. What are you talking about? Think about it. Besides Mrs. Beat's bouquet, there's Mr. Garadeb's book. Mr. Garadeb's copy of The Lion's Pride, which was thrown out the window by his wife, would have struck the pane of the casement window and landed here on the west side of the street. And yet, it was actually found here, on the opposite side of the road, in the victim's hand. Meanwhile, according to the testimony we've heard, Mrs. Beat's bouquet should have been dropped here at the scene of the crime on the east side of the street. But in fact, it was actually found here on the opposite side of the road in front of Mr. and Mrs. Garadeb's house. There's no logical explanation for those things, unless somebody deliberately moved them. What are you trying to say? The way you're talking, it sounds like you think my Rolly's done something wrong.
Don't you listen to a word that scrawny lawyer says. We're trading on about books and bouquets. Why should we care? It's nitpicking, that's what it is.
Oh, good. Mrs. Garadeb's come round. You might call it nitpicking, Mrs. Garadeb, but deliberately meddling with the scene of a crime is a criminal offense. It's called, tampering, Mr. Naruhodo. But the person responsible for this tampering cannot admit to it, for a very subtle but compelling reason.
Objection!
Tampering? You've barely heard the term before. Tell us, my learned friend. Who would possibly have had cause to carry out such an elaborate deception? Yes, there is someone who tampered with the scene of the crime that evening. All the evidence and all the testimony points to that one particular person.
Counsel, I must demand that you substantiate this conjecture. Who are you saying is responsible for tampering with the scene of the crime?
Well, honestly, I think it's Clownface, but he's not a part of our character here, so I'm gonna go with...
Take that!
The music didn't stop. No. There's only one person who could have done this.
Do you intend to share your internal monologue, Counsel?
Sorry, my lord, I was just taking a moment to get things straight in my mind. And for that moment of wasted court's time, you will pay the price. Is it me, or are things getting more strict around here? What were you thinking? Or what you were thinking is right, Mr. Naruhodo. There is only one person who had the opportunity to tamper with the scene of the crime. There can be no mistake. Yes, I thought so. There's no point overthinking this. There's really only one option. So it has to be the constable, then.
I need an answer, Counsel.
Take that!
Obviously, there's only one person it could have been. Constable Rolly Beat. It was you. I mean, my thought process was that the constable has not, in fact, been awake for those 15 minutes, and he was just passed out. In the meanwhile, they came out the window and...
What? A policeman? A member of Scotland Yard?
What nonsense. Why would my Rolly do something like that? I guess this was foreshadowed, though, because there was a lot of forewarning before with dialogue that, oh yes, he's a policeman. You know, like that was the whole defense on how these people are untouchable. This couple here are untouchable, and their testimony could be indisputable. Why would my Rolly do something like that? There's no one straighter than my husband. No Bobby works more tirelessly for the people of London. And Mrs. Beat, you said in your testimony that your husband asked you to go to a nearby police box to... Aha! He moved the body because it was on his beat so that they could go to dinner. That your husband asked you to go to a nearby police box to fetch the officer on duty. The 15 minutes that you were absent from the scene is the only opportunity anyone had to tamper with it. You're making it up. It's all nonsense. It's all lies. But she literally said it was on the wrong side of the street when she came back. And then she blamed it on her poor sense of direction. What about that Japanese man with the whiskers? I bet it was him. He did it.
Objection!
If that was true, Constable Beat would have seen him do it. Oh. And forgive me for pointing it out, but when you dropped your bouquet, Mrs. Beat, it was after the defendant had fled the scene. Will...
Objection!
First you make accusations about the landlord and his wife, and now you incriminate a policeman as well. But your accusations lack one very important thing. You claim the crime scene was tampered with. But there is only one reason anyone would commit such a reckless crime, to hide something. That's right, he's right. But my husband and I just happened to be there, that's all. So why would we have anything to hide? It doesn't make sense. You've offered no motive for this alleged tampering. And until you do, your accusations are nothing but empty threats. Constable Beat had a very good reason for wanting to tamper with the scene of the crime. That's the key to this entire affair. Mr. Naruhodo, have you managed to solve the mystery?
Hey, Counsel, you have made a very serious accusation against a London police officer. If you are mistaken, I'm sure I need not point out that your reputation as a lawyer, even though that rather started yesterday, will be irrevocably damaged. With that stark warning in mind, you will now explain to the court the motive for this alleged tampering.
Yes, my lord. Constable Beat's motive for tampering with the crime scene was to hide where the victim fell. Where the victim fell to the ground. That is what this Bobby had to cover up at all costs. What?
Where the victim fell? You mean where she was attacked? What are you talking about? We told you at the very start, didn't we? On the pavement of Briar Road. We saw it happen, remember? It was right here, as if anyone didn't already know.
That's certainly what everybody has been led to believe, but in fact, that isn't where the victim was stabbed at all.
What? What? I'm beginning to wonder where this tumultuous trial will end, Counsel.
If that's your assertion, then the court is dying to know, my Nipponiese friend. Where are you proposing that the crime actually took place that evening? I guess it would be anywhere over here.
Take that!
But that's...
On the opposite side of the road.
I don't understand.
On the evening in question, Mr. Garadeb's book fell directly down from the open window above, and your bouquet, Mrs. Beat, never moved at all. What did move was the scene of the crime itself.
Good gracious!
Objection!
Perhaps you haven't been listening to the ample testimony the court has heard. But these witnesses both saw the moment the attack took place.
That's right. I saw it with my own eyes.
It was 5 o'clock in the evening and already dark. There was the typical London fog on the ground. When you saw the incident unfold and ran to the victim's aid, that was actually on the west side of Briar Road.
No, that's not true. It can't have been.
Constable Beat then arranged for you to be absent for a while by sending you for help. And during the 15 minutes you were away, he transplanted the crime scene. He moved all the things shown in this print, the victim herself, the 4 books. He moved everything, in fact, to the pavement on the east side of Briar Road.
Extraordinary.
But the constable overlooked one thing.
What? What did he overlook?
Bouquet, I presume? Exactly. The prosecution told the court just a few minutes ago about the discovery of the rose bouquet. Lord Van Zeek said it wasn't noticed until the morning, as it lay where the street lamps cast no light.
Yes, it couldn't be seen in the dark, obviously.
Which is why it was only the bouquet that was found in its original position on the pavement on the west side of Briar Road. Count down to objection, prove it, and then I gotta show him the book where it says constable has to do-do-do. And that is the defense's theory about what really happened that evening. How do you respond, Constable Raleigh Beat? Well, I'm very sorry. I didn't mean to nod off again, but I haven't slept properly in a month. Did I miss anything important?
Oh, Raleigh. It isn't true, is it? What that lawyer just said is all lies, isn't it? I know it is, because you're the most upstanding, righteous man I know.
I had a dream, a terrible dream. All the things I did that night, everything come out, everything exposed. Only, it seems, it wasn't a dream at all.
Good golly.
I myself am surprised too.
that they're actually just going ahead with this and we can skip the charades. Order! Order! What on earth is the meaning of all this?
Oh, Roy, why would you do something like this? Moving a corpse is a criminal offense, isn't it?
Wishing the victim dead should be one too. Constable, explain yourself. Why would you do this? As a respected member of Scotland Yard, your duty is to protect the good people of London Town.
I can't say, sir.
What?
I really am ever so sorry about all this. For damaging the Yard's reputation. But for everything.
I have a possible explanation for why, on that particular evening, Constable Beat felt compelled to move the scene of the crime. I can think of one reason.
What? How could you possibly know? You, a foreigner, presuming to understand the mind of a Scotland Yard policeman.
And yet, Lord Van Zeeks, it is this foreigner who has uncovered the startling truth of the matter thus far. I believe it would be beneficial to the court to hear this extraordinary young lawyer's theory. Counsel for the defense, if you please.
Yes, my lord.
Now then, I think you had better show us some evidence.
Once, my lord.
England, Japan. It makes no difference where you come from, human emotions are the same. And I think I have a fairly good idea of the feelings behind this man's actions. What gives away the motive for Constable Beat's unthinkable actions?
Okay.
Take that!
Present.
I realize that I'm a foreigner in this land, and I have only just arrived from Japan, which is why all this information about London's so-called bobbies is completely new to me. I have learnt that, although honorable, patrolling the beat is the most demanding work in the world, for example. Keeping the peace, looking after the citizens on his beat in all kinds of ways. There's no doubt that the young bobby is charged with a great deal to do each day, certainly. But for Constable Beat, the day in question was special. Special? How? On account of this bouquet, my lord.
Oh, yes. It was our very first wedding anniversary.
Constable Beat had worked so hard to be able to afford this simple gift for his wife, and was so looking forward to taking her out for a celebratory meal, when he and Mrs. Beat stumbled upon a crime along Briar Road. When he saw that shadowy figure through the fog collapse on the pavement ahead of him, what must have gone through the man's mind?
But sir, just on that one particular day, I was looking forward to celebrating my wedding anniversary. Mrs. Beat put up with a lot of being married to a bobby like me. I wanted to show my dear wife how much I care.
There you go. This is the warrant card that Constable Beat offered to lend me earlier. Inside, among the rules for patrolling policemen, it says, when a crime is discovered on his beat, a policeman must assist with initial investigations and help detectives. Constable Beat. Is that, or is that not, the reason why you moved the whole scene of the crime that day?
Yes. Everything you said, it's all right.
So that's it. It was all to do with the boundary of your beat.
Oh.
Exactly. To summarize, the incident actually occurred on Constable Beat's beat. Oh, good gracious. Constable, do you realize the gravity of what you've done?
It was the first time since I became a copper that I'd ever cursed God. Stay close to me, Pat. Criminal could still be lurking somewhere. As we ran over the scene, I had every intention of doing my duty as a police officer. We've got to report this to the station as quickly as possible. But then, it dawned on me. I realized where we were, where the victim was lying, and what that meant for me. When a crime is discovered on his beat, a policeman must assist with the initial investigations and help detectives. Why here? Why did this have to happen to me? Happen here? And why tonight, of all nights? Why? It's a copper's job to guard the scene of the crime, so I told Pat she'd have to go to the nearest police box and fetch whoever was on duty there. It was then, when I opened my mouth to speak, it just came out. I couldn't believe the words that were coming out of my own mouth. This is the next beat to mine, Pat. So you'll have to go to the police box that covers it. Turn right along Meersham Street, and then... I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Oh, Constable. I just wanted that one night to take my Patricia out for dinner. Oh, Rolly. Just that one night. You knew that if the incident was on your beat, your evening of celebration would be ruined. So you decided to move the entire crime scene outside your jurisdiction, just across the street to the east pavement of Briar Road, which falls under the neighboring beat's care. You see, I thought, well, I was sure the victim was dead, you see.
I beg your pardon?
Oh, of course he did. Otherwise, my Rolly would never have left the poor woman on the freezing cold pavement.
I see what you're meaning now.
But God got me back from my sins, didn't he? That's why I missed the rose I bought for Pat. Oh no, Rolly, that was all my fault. I should never have dropped it in such a dark place. I'm so sorry, Rolly. Can you tell us, Constable, how many books did you move from the one side of the road to the other in total? 4 it was. Yes, sir, definitely. 4. 3 of them dropped by Mr. Natsume, and the 4th being the one that fell from the window upstairs in the Garadeb household, of course. But what made you place that book in the victim's hand? When all the others were scattered haphazardly around, I mean. Oh, well, sir, that's because that's how I found it. How you found it? What do you mean? When we first ran over to the scene, the victim was already holding the book. So, when I moved everything, I made sure it was still in her hand. You're sure it was this book, The Lion's Pride, that the victim was holding? Oh, yes, sir. No doubt about it, sir. Interesting. The 4th book's information has been updated in the court record. I thought it was an open and shut case at the time, you see. There were only the 2 people at the scene, and Pat and me both saw it happen. However, which way you looked at it, it had to be the fellow who ran off who'd done it, I thought. I couldn't see the harm, really. I didn't think moving it all over the road would make a jot of difference. I suppose this is it for me now. I've had it.
My lord. Yes, Lord Van Zieks.
I believe that concludes the cross-examination of the witnesses. Constable, you may withdraw. Yes, sir. Mr. Prosecutor, sir, what will become of my Rolly? What will happen to him? For now, you are free to go home. The police will contact you in due course. Please, don't punish my husband. This was all my fault. It's because I'm always moaning at him for coming home late. Leave it now, Pet. Let's go home. I'm Tired. All right then, my love. One last thing, Constable. Sir? Let this be a lesson to you. In a criminal investigation, every detail matters, however insignificant it may seem to you. Yes, sir. Carve that lesson in your mind. And never again make the mistake of tampering with the scene of a crime. Never again, sir. You mean to say... Leave. Now. This trial's not yet over. Sir.
Well, quite a startling revelation, I must say. Whoever thought of a third party transplanting the entire scene of a crime like that?
Indeed, my lord. Nevertheless, there are some immutable facts here. Principally, that the accused Mr. Saseki Natsume is the only person who could possibly have committed this crime. No, I disagree. Now that we know the true scene of the incident, there is someone else. Another person who could be responsible for the knife in the victim's back. Forgive me for being presumptuous, but I believe the prosecution is probably well aware of this possibility already.
Lord Van Zieks, is this true?
Very well. Name the person, if you will, and if further investigation is warranted. Prosecution has no objection to the trial continuing.
You will name this other person who could have perpetrated the crime.
Well, it had to have been her then, huh? Because, again, we don't have access to the clown, so it's gotta be her. Even if it is by accident.
Take that!
The defense would once again like to request the cross-examination of a new witness, my lord.
Once again?
My assistant made the same request earlier. In order to finally reveal the truth about this case, it's imperative that we cross-examine juror number 4, Mrs. Joan Garadeb.
Me? Me? How dearie me!
Objection!
That request has already been denied. But the situation is very different now. Mrs. Garadeb, answer me this. What do you want now, you little toad? At the time of the incident, you were engaged in a violent argument with your husband, Mr. John Garadeb. In the course of the argument, a minor house fire was ignited, and to clear the smoke from the room, your husband opened a window that looks out over Briar Road. Well, what of it? You threw this book at your husband when he was cornered with his back against the window. Upon striking the pane of the open top-hinged casement window, the book plummeted directly down. Finding its way to what we now know to be the true scene of the incident. Yes, and as I said, what of it? During the argument, you were beside yourself with rage. As such, you threw not just books, but anything you could lay your hands on. So, let me ask you one more time, Mrs. Garadeb. So she reached down to pick up the book, her back was bent, so the knife just happened to fall, and stabbed her in the back, and it did not puncture all the way through because it chipped the tip off as it hit the window, the only thing that possibly saved her life. This knife, the one removed from the victim's back, have you never laid eyes on it before?
Oh.
I don't recall it. Seriously? Am I supposed to remember everything I picked up and threw at my husband? And anyway, the man over there in all that regalia said members of the jury needn't testify, didn't he? Conveniently, yes.
Objection!
No, I have no recollection of saying that at all. Number 4. Oh? Make no mistake, you jurors are not special in any way. You are not immune to the judicial process. If you know something about this knife, madam, let the truth come out. But that's just a common or garden knife. It could have come from anywhere. We have several like that at home. If one went missing, how would you expect me to know? What's that? Oh, you joking?
What are you saying, please, Mrs. Garadeb?
Now you listen to me. I refuse to believe all this nonsense. I couldn't bear the thought that I'd injured someone. Do you hear? I couldn't bear it. Oh, poor woman. So, yes, I want evidence. I want to see hard evidence if you're going to insist on this being my fault. You're going to have to prove to me that I threw that knife if that's what you think. Come along now, chop chop. Do your worst. Well, Mr. Naruhodo, if I had evidence like that, believe me, I would have thrown it at her already.
Then take the stand, juror.
Oh. Ooh.
The prosecution does not object to the defense's request to cross-examine this woman. Thank you, Lord Van Zieks.
I'm going to have to testify.
Juror number 4. As I'm sure you will appreciate having observed it with your own eyes today, witness testimony can lead to the most extraordinary truths being unearthed, truths of which the witnesses themselves may not even have been aware.
Oh, dearie me.
So I demand your full and unadulterated testimony, Mrs. Garadeb. And mark my words, in this court of law today, we shall extract the truth. Do you concur, counsels?
Certainly, my lord. That's what I'm hoping for, my lord. Finally end this episode soon, I'm hoping. This is such a strange feeling. For the first time since arriving in this country, it actually feels real. I'm here, in the Old Bailey, and I'm a lawyer. Witness, state your name and occupation. Oh, yes, my name is Joan Garadeb. And we'll pick this up next time.